So after talking about the MC questions, so let's take a look at the long questions. So the first long question is question 13. So in this question, you can see that the lateral view of a human brain. And in this diagram, you can find that structures X, Y, A, and B. So for the good practice, I always remind you in the lesson is that when we see the question which contains different structures A, B, C, P, Q, R, X, Y, A, B, something like this. So remember, the good habit is to label all the structures first, because it will make you have a clear picture of the diagram, and then the question, they must ask about the structures. And then that means beforehand you can know the structure first, and then once you see that part of question, name structure A, or what is the functions of structure A, and then you can answer it easily. Part A is talking about the surface of structure X is highly folded. So what is the significance of these features? And then part B, name structure Y and state one of its functions. So you can see that for part A and part B is already asking about the structure X and Y. So beforehand, if you can name X and Y, so it will be easier for you to understand the question. Good practice, name all the labels A, B, X, and Y. So for this diagram, okay, we talk about X and Y first to deal with part A and part B. So for X, actually, what is it? Is it cerebrum or cerebellum? You tell me. And then Y, I tell you, Y is medulla oblongata. Okay, you know this first. And then for part A, actually the question is talking about the structure is given highly folded. The surface of structure X is highly folded. And what is the significance of this feature? Actually is the type of adaptive features question. So remember that now in the question, the feature is given. So what you need to think about is that how this feature help the this structure to perform the function well. So that's why you need to recall the corresponding structural features of the structure X. And I give you one more mark if you can determine structure X is cerebrum or cerebellum. So I think you can check the adaptive features of structure X in the book. And then for part B, name structure Y and state one of its function. So as what I mentioned, structure Y is medulla oblongata, so that's why you earn 1 mark already. And then what you need to do is state one function of the medulla oblongata, and I will give you one mark bonus, okay, one more bonus mark, okay, for the second function. So that means if you can name 2 functions for me, and also of course copy the name of the structure Y, medulla oblongata, you will get 1 bonus mark. And then for part C and D, part C is talking about a patient who suffer from a stroke. So that means what does it mean, the stroke? That means maybe the blood vessels, okay, in the brain is broken, okay, or is broke. So that's why the brain cells, they cannot receive sufficient amount of blood, sufficient amount of oxygen and nutrients. So that's why the brain cells will die. We diagnose that part of area A is damaged. And after stroke, it was found that he had difficulty in moving his arm. So that's why it's a bit difficult for him to do some movement. So actually, the question is asking what is area A. And then what you know that area A is responsible for the man to move. Okay, so you have this very brief idea first. And then for part D, area B is located behind area A. So what is area B? So for this question, okay, also the good practice, okay, if you have already named area A and area B before, okay, you go to part C and part D, these 2 questions will be extremely easy, okay. Which area is the motor area? Which area is the sensory area? Although, okay, you may not be able to recall it at this moment, once you take a look at the diagram in the book, I think you can find the answer very easily. And then for question 16, it's talking about the very basic unit of the nervous system, which is the neuron, the nerve cell. So you can see the dendron, you can see the cell body, you can see the synaptic knob. So for part A, name the structures labeled P, Q, R in the diagram. So that's what I say. the good practice, even you do not look at the question part A, you can still do some labeling first. Label P, Q, R. As what I mentioned before, the questions, if it's given some structures A, B, C, P, Q, R, X, Y, Z, the questions, it must ask you the structures. No matter the name or the structures or the adaptive features, they must ask about it. So for part A, label P, Q, R. So for Q, for R, I think it's easy for you to label. So that's why I would like to talk about the structure P. Structure P, it is the organelle releasing energy by respiration. So that's why I think you can recall the name of structure P. And one more reminder for part A is that just beware of the singular or the plural form of the noun, because it's just talking about the P is pointing to one structure, Q is pointing to one structure, and R only pointing to one structure. Okay, so it should be singular form in the answer, right? And then for part B1, explain how the neurotransmitter released from the synaptic knob crosses the synaptic cliff. So for doing this question, okay, you need to analyze how many parts in this question. And in this question, there are two parts. The first part is that how do the neurotransmitter move across the synaptic cliff? So you can check the box, okay, in this diagram. This diagram you can find it in the book, okay. So how do they move across the synaptic cliff? Any specific verb for us to use? And for the second part, because we need to explain how. For the first part is talking about how, and for the second part is talking about why. Why do the neurotransmitter move in this way? So what you need to do is to recall the concept in chapter 3 about this type of the movement of molecules. So after we analyze the question, there are two parts in the question. So now we are going to talk about how can we answer this question. So from the diagram, okay, in the box number 3, you know that the neurotransmitter diffuses across the synaptic cliff. So that's why for the first part of the question, okay, your answer will be very simple. The neurotransmitters diffuse across the synaptic cliff. It's talking about how do they move, right? And then for the second part, you need to explain why. Why do they move in this way? Okay, so that's why you need to recall the concept of chapter 3. Okay, also as what you see is talking about diffusion. So that's why in this paragraph I also extract main idea of diffusion. So we call the reason to explain why the neurotransmitters diffuse across the synaptic cliff. So that's why what you need to recall is that any specific situation need to diffusion to happen. Okay, part 2. Part 2 is talking about the neurotransmitter molecules are normally broken down by enzyme once they reach the post-synaptic cliff. So somehow the enzyme will break down the neurotransmitter. But now the question is talking about the other concept. Okay, it says that some chemicals may inhibit the action of the nervous system by preventing the breakdown of the neurotransmitter molecules after they have bound to the receptor on the postsynaptic membrane. So that's why some chemicals, okay, will inhibit the enzymatic reaction. Normally, the neurotransmitter, they are broken down when they arrive the postsynaptic cliff, okay, region, membrane. But now, okay, once there are those chemicals, the chemicals will prevent the breakdown of neurotransmitter. Okay, so we need to recall some basic concept from this question first. The question is asking, describe the ways in which the some chemicals may prevent the breakdown of the neurotransmitter. So that's why you just need to describe, but you do not need to explain. Okay, you just describe how the chemicals prevent the breakdown of the neurotransmitter molecules. So for the first idea, okay, you need to think about it, is that neurotransmitter molecules are normally broken down by enzyme. So is it a catabolism or anabolism? Okay, so refer for these two diagrams, okay, figure 4.1 or figure 4.2. So easily, okay, it must be the catabolic reaction, is breaking down reaction, right? So in this reaction, what is the substrate? You can see that neurotransmitter molecules are normally broken down by the enzyme. So that's why which one is the substrate? So it must be the neurotransmitter molecules. They are the substrate, right? Okay, the first idea you need to recall, okay, catabolism and anabolism, and also the substrate, okay, the concept of substrate and enzyme. And then for the second concept you need to recall is that, and in the yellow part, okay, it's talking about the chemicals will prevent the breakdown of the neurotransmitter molecules. So what you need to recall is that how do the enzyme work? So you need to recall the functions of the enzyme. Okay, how do they work? So by referring to this diagram, catabolic reaction. So once the substrate bind to the enzyme a specific site, okay, in the enzyme, so they will form the enzyme substrate complex, and then the substrate will be broken down. Like that's the normal case. That's the normal case. Okay, if the neurotransmitter they bind to the enzyme, and then the enzyme, okay, will speed up the catabolic reaction. Okay, will speed up the catabolic reaction to break down the substrate into product. But now it's talking about some chemicals will prevent this reaction to take place. So how do the chemicals do so? So let's take a look, okay, in this paragraph, okay, to construct your answer. So I give you some blank to fill in and also some wordings to choose. The chemicals may bind to the certain area of the enzymes, or the chemicals may change the shape of the certain area of the enzyme. So what are they? What are they? Okay, so any specific region in the enzyme, they can be affected. Okay, and then the neurotransmitter molecules, which are substrate or enzyme, you tell me. Okay, neurotransmitter molecules, substrate or enzyme, they cannot bind to the specific area of the enzymes. Actually, this answer, they are the same. Okay, but I just want you to recall the specific part of the enzyme molecule. And then finally, the catabolic or anabolic reaction of the neurotransmitter molecules cannot be catalyzed. That means cannot be speed up. So that's the end of this video. If you have any question, please feel free to leave it below, and I will answer you as soon as possible. See you next time. Bye bye.